December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
We interrupt this broadcast, bringing this important bulletin from the United Press. Flash, Washington. The White House announces Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
Hello from our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., and welcome to this very special edition of Veterans of the Valley. I'm Tom Turbyville.
Hi, Tom. I'm Kyle Netterville. Tom and I are honored to join more than 150 World War II veterans from the Brazos Valley area for the Lone Star Honor Flight.
We are here to document it all, starting at this magnificent World War II memorial. But it all started quite early on May the 1st for the veterans and their guardians. About 2:30 a.m. when those from the Bryan College Station area gathered at the Brazos Center for a grand send-off from young and old alike, not just family and friends. Then Mayor Pro Tem, soon to be Mayor Jason Bainski, declared that May 1st, a very special day in the city of Bryan.
On behalf of the Mayor and City Council, do hereby proclaim May 1, barely, 2010 as Lone Star Honor Flight Day.
Then it was off on the short trip to Conroe for the bus full of Bryan College Station area World War II veterans and their guardians. As with the previous 3 Lone Star Honor flights, hundreds were gathered in Conroe to send off with their best wishes these veterans to have a great day with a big thank you. After a biker's prayer from our very special escort to Bush Airport, it was a pre-dawn ride down the interstate to Bush Intercontinental Airport, where again the reception was magnificent, befitting the honor earned by these veterans. The veterans came regardless of their abilities. Loading the wheelchairs on and off the airplanes and the buses was the job of the fabulous staff of Lone Star Honor Flight and the Guardians. The vets were not just from the twin cities of Bryan College Station, but from Hearn and Caldwell, Hilltop Lakes and Normandy. When we got to Conroe, we met up with even more veterans and guardians from practically every direction and point along the Gulf Coast I-45 corridor. Not just from Conroe or Huntsville, but from Montgomery, the Woodlands, Houston, Winnie, Willis, Livingston, from Missouri City, from Bridge City, from Baytown, from Kingwood, Nederland, Dayton, even the Golden Triangle area of Beaumont, Port Arthur, Port Neches, and Groves, and as far away as Phoenix, Arizona. Once the hands were shaken and the many thank yous given, it was time to board the charter flight to Washington, D.C. Once on, it was indeed a grand reception by the Honor Flight crew who greet similar honor flights from all over the country and there were others from other parts of the United States arriving that same day. Four buses awaited us when we arrived with plenty of food and water aboard, all the buses as well as the special passengers. A wave and a salute from Brian's Dr. Jim Cooper and his guardian, his son, Mike Cooper. And it was off to our first stop, the World War II Veterans Memorial. Frank Litterish is Texas A&M class of 1943, an Army artillery officer who was wounded in the Pacific Campaign.
It's a beautiful tribute, Tom. It's more than I expected, and I think it's wonderful that they do that for us. I know a lot of us chipped in and helped build this. Never had seen it before, and I'm really impressed with it. And it's saddened that those that got killed aren't here to see it today. So it was a wonderful tribute, and I get tore up a little bit, sentimental, but I can't help it. And anyway, I appreciate all you guys do and everything to promote this wonderful trip.
For longtime Bryan physician Dr. J.F. Cooper, this was a very, very special trip.
Tom, this is one of the most delightful things I've done in my life, to be able to come to this memorial. And there are a lot of us World War II veterans that are here today, but what it makes you think about are the thousands and thousands of young men who gave their lives in World War II and are not able to be here. And it's just absolutely a thrill to be here and a privilege. And we want to thank everybody who was instrumental in bringing us here today.
During World War II, Dr. Cooper had served in Washington as a medical doctor.
I was stationed at the Naval Hospital at Bethesda, out near Rockville, Maryland. I was there 14 months, and it was another experience because you never know from minute to minute who was going to come through there. And we saw everybody from the King of Siam to the President of the United States. We had 3 5-star admirals on the floor at one time in the Naval Hospital while I was there. And again, it was just like looking in a history book and being a part of history to be there. And I feel privileged to be here this afternoon. And again, I think about the thousands of young men who gave their lives to save this country and give us the opportunity to be in this great, great capital of ours today.
For College Station veteran Jim Gordon, it was not his first trip to Washington, D.C., but it was his first one in 65 years. And for this trip, a very special reunion.
It's a beautiful, beautiful memorial. It means so much, not only to World War II veterans, but to our present military. Like,
introduce us to your great niece. Who is this?
Okay, Colonel Kelly Martin. right here in Washington. She's stationed here.
Colonel Martin was obviously excited to see her great uncle.
It is an amazing privilege and just a great day to be here at the World War II Memorial with my great uncle. And I'm so proud of him and everything that he did back then. So grateful for his service and leaving me a legacy, because that's what he and his brothers did for me. And it's just a very special privilege for me to be able to be here with him. This is really a family event.
Today's military knows the sacrifices that were made 65 years ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is no doubt in our mind that we are here carrying on the traditions and the honor that they established and really laid that foundation for. I just couldn't be more proud to be a niece of my Uncle Jim, and just thrilled to be here with him today, to be able to be at the World War II Memorial with him today. Yeah.
On this Lone Star Honor Flight, we had the honor for the first time to meet Ira Irvin of Bryan College Station. It was Ira Irvin's first trip to the World War II Veterans Memorial, but he deserved to go a long time ago. You see, he's a card-carrying charter member of the World War II Veterans Memorial. Ira Irvin, it's his first visit to the World War II Memorial here in Washington, D.C. And Ira, it's your first visit here, but you're a charter member of the World War II Memorial. How did that come about?
Well, I got very interested in it, and when they were first starting out, I got a letter in the mail like a lot of other people from Bob Dole, but to me it had a real meaning that this memorial be built, and I wanted to have as much of a part in it as I possibly could, because it means something to me that people in our country know that we made it possible, and I don't brag about it, it was just a job to be done, but that we made it possible for our country to continue to have the freedoms that we have. And a lot of people today don't know how close it came, that it went the other way too.
Indeed. I'm looking over here to your right at the monument to the campaign in the Pacific, and that's where you served, was at Okinawa, among other places, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was at Okinawa. I was a corpsman taking care of wounded Marines as they were getting hit. My job was to do what I could do for them and try to get them back, if we could, to a battalion aid station if it was possible. That was very difficult, but we could do what we could do for them. We had a hospital ship out there for a while, the Mercy, but then when the Japanese began the kamikaze attacks, they had to get the Mercy out of there. So didn't have a hospital ship, they just had a battalion aid station where the doctors were, but that was my job, was as they were getting hit, to do what I could do for them, and treat the wound as best we could, start them on plasma, and all of it, whatever we could do. I went back to Okinawa in 1978. I visited the museum that the Marines have there, the battle, and the sergeant took me in and showed me an Okinawan farmer had plowed up General Buckner's dog tags. General Buckner was commanding general of the 10th Army and was in command of the whole operation until he was killed in action. And how he ever got separated from his dog tags, nobody can figure out, but he did. And this Okinawan farmer had plowed them up and took them in there in the museum there at Okinawa. And that was quite a thing there.
82 years old, and if you don't believe it, here's his cards. He's a card-carrying member, 2 card-carrying members, charter member of the World War II Memorial. Thank you, Mr. Irvin. It was an unusually hot day in Washington, D.C. that day. The walk from the bus stop to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was a bit too long for some of these vets, but a few made the trek. The Vietnam Wall. You know, we've had the privilege of having the traveling replica visit the George Bush Library. But I have to tell you, there is absolutely nothing more solemn, more prideful, more sad than to witness the actual wall near the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. The names just go on and on and on, seemingly forever. There are grown men looking for or tracing the names of a cousin, a brother, or a father. School-age boys and girls perhaps seeing the name of a grandfather they never knew. Or maybe even a World War II vet seeing the name of a lost child or grandchild they'll never forget. I could not help but think about our own magnificent Brazos Valley Veterans Memorial and the many names it bears. The generations that never were because of the war that stole them away. If you have the honor to visit our nation's capital, a visit to the Vietnam Memorial Wall is a memory that will stay with you forever. For a moment, let's go back to Lone Star Honor Flight's home base in Conroe. It was a few days after the flight and a very special tribute to the some 500 Southeast Texas vets who have traveled on Lone Star Honor flights. The history of Lone Star Honor Flight is a remarkable one indeed. Lone Star Honor Flight is a project started in Montgomery, Texas by junior high school teacher Brenda Bevan. She had watched an Ohio man named Earl Morris on Good Morning America talk about the National Honor Flight program that he had created. She figured that anything good enough for Ohio was triple good for Texas, so she organized the first Lone Star Honor Flight. Kudos to the students in the Montgomery School District who raised the first $30,000 to help fund the first trip. Before sunrise, May 31st, 2008, some 99 World War II vets, at absolutely no cost to them, were bused from Conroe to Bush Airport in Houston, put on a chartered Continental 737, flown to Washington, D.C., put on another bus, and then taken to the National World War II Memorial, the Korean War Veteran Memorial, the Vietnam Veteran Memorial, and the Arlington National Cemetery. This past trip was trip number 4. And now some 500 veterans have been the benefactors of Lone Star Honor Flight, the creation of Brenda Bevan and the Lone Star Honor Flight staff. On Wednesday, following our trip, a special commemoration flag raising, a giant flag raising, was held in Conroe at the offices of Lone Star Honor Flight. That's at Storage 105 in Conroe. Jack McClanahan is the owner. And Jack put the flag up to honor all the branches of the military, again, especially the 500 World War II veterans who have flown Lone Star Honor Flight. This was his way of saying thank you for their service to the United States. Kyle, I know that was a magnificent event. A couple of days after we got back, you went over to Conroe with your camera to shoot that raising of that humongous flag.
Tom, it was a huge flag. That's as it came out of that trash can that they had nicely decorated. It just kept coming out. And they had, if you can see from the footage, they had to use a drill to raise it all the way up. That flagpole had to be 60, 70 feet tall. It was an outstanding event. I'm glad to see everybody was there. It was starting to get a little warm. Yep. But everyone had a really good time.
It's a magnificent organization, the Lone Star Honor Flight, that puts this together. And as we said, it started several years ago. Brenda Bevan, who's former history teacher at Montgomery High School, actually sort of created all of this when she found out about it from a fellow in Ohio. And as a matter of fact, the weekend that this show is airing here to the folks here in the Brazos Valley, they're taking flight number 5, their 5th and final flight. And altogether, they will have taken 500 World War II veterans, around 500 World War II veterans from here to Washington, D.C. Just magnificent.
That's outstanding, yeah. I'm sorry to see it's the last flight, but they told us the reason why of these. These gentlemen are just getting old. Every year they get older, and you would think they could keep going, but what the oldest one on this trip was, I believe, 97, 98, and the youngest was 88. So next year they're that much year older, and as everyone knows, once you start getting to that age, every year you get a little slower as it was, but it was an outstanding trip.
And what an opportunity it was for you and I to go and to be able to document this. What were some of your impressions as you watched, not just the work that we did, but as you watched these World War II veterans?
Not just the veterans, Tom, but even the volunteers of seeing what the looks on their faces when these veterans came off the plane, or as they're going to the monuments for the first time. You get choked up. You really do, to see these gentlemen. It's possibly the first time that they've been there, the first time they've gone through those thoughts again of being at that certain memorial, especially if they're there with some buddies who they hadn't seen in a long time, which happened quite a bit. But just to see their faces, the range of emotions, you could see they were happy, you could see they were sad, you could see quite a few of them were rethinking the thoughts of things that went on back then when they were at these memorials, and it's quite touching. I got choked up quite a few times. I really did. Indeed.
Besides the video that we took, we also took some still photographs while we were there. Let's go and look at a few of those, and we'll sort of the send-off both at the Brazos Center at 2:30 a.m. in the morning.
2:30 in the morning.
And then a couple of hours later in Conroe was just magnificent. Just here, there's a couple of shots of some of the citizens that came out in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, when we pulled into that parking lot, basically there at I-45 and State Highway 105, just to see the amount of people that were there, it told me right away that this was something special.
Indeed.
There was just all sorts of constables' cars, sheriff's cars. There was a huge contingent of bikers, motorcyclists who basically escorted us all the way to the airport.
Right. We saw those earlier, some of the artistry that was made. This was at the airport a little bit later on. Some of the kids' classes from...
These were from Montgomery, I believe, middle school.
Middle school.
And these were inside the plane, all along the walls. And I bet there was at least a dozen or so all through this plane. They really had it decked out. Also off to a Continental.
Yes.
For letting them do all this to these planes. It was just great to see all these signs, and the old guys loved it. The veterans, I should say.
Patriot Guard, you got a ride in one of the constable cars to where you could get some good shots of the Patriot Guard. They were the ones that escorted us to the airport. Move on. We got some more pictures here.
Hats off to them. There's those bikes.
There's those colorful bikes that you saw with the flags.
And I must say, it's quite impressive, as you know, you were on the buses, just to see this contingent going down 45 and basically everyone else who was on the freeway, even though it was an early hour of the morning, they were pulling over and letting this convoy go through. It was quite impressive.
This was about 5:30, 6 a.m. in the morning on Saturday morning. Folks at the airport, this was at Bush Intercontinental Airport, our reception there. This is Buddy and Jean McGowan, who really were very instrumental, not only in this flight here, making this thing happen in the Brazos Valley, but in helping you and I get on the flight and do the work that we did. So we want to thank them very much.
They were outstanding.
They really were. And we move on. There's Dr. Jim Cooper, Dr. J.F. Cooper, and at the airport. And we've got a few more. Each state has a monument at the World War II Memorial. And of course, there's the Texas one. There I am with three of our local veterans. There's Frank Coachman and Joe Hanover and Frank Litterist, and the big guy in the middle. That was fun to get my picture taken with them. And there's the Washington Monument.
That's about halfway, just for anyone who's been there, that's about halfway down the reflecting pond there between the Washington Memorial and then the Lincoln, which is at the other direction.
Right.
So we're standing just about halfway.
Right. Again, thanks to Continental Airlines for their crew actually donates their time. That's the pilot, Greg Brotherson, and Troy Maddox is the first officer. And we'll talk more about them later.
Absolutely. They were and there's the salute from all the veterans there that were at Arlington. There's going to be a lot more coming up for the second part. I think we need to take a look at a preview.
And next week on Veterans of the Valley, we will conclude what was an unforgettably tremendous day for some 150 veterans, as we will join them for the emotional and unforgettable visit to the Arlington National Cemetery, where they were the honored guests for the day's final changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknowns. And then a trip to the United States Marines Memorial that commemorates the Battle of Iwo Jima and the famous raising of the flag at Mount Suribachi. For Kyle Netterville, I'm Tom Turbyville. Join us next week for Lone Star Honor Flight, Part 2 on Veterans of the Valley.